God completes his creation of the world and places the first humans, Adam and Eve, in a garden called Eden. In the middle of the garden are the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God tells Adam and Eve,
"You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die."
But man chooses to disobey God and eats from the forbidden tree. And as a result, sin and death enter the world. Man's fellowship with God has been broken.
As people begin to populate the globe, they turn further and further away from God. Eventually, the entire world forgets about God and turns to a life of evil. The Lord grieves that he has made man on earth, and his heart is filled with pain. God decides to send a great flood that destroys all living things on the earth. He instructs Noah, the only godly man alive, to build a large boat. Noah obeys, and as a result, only he and his family are left to repopulate the earth.
Over 2,500 years pass. It is now time for God's next move. Time to build a nation that will one day house the Savior of the world. God chooses a man named Abraham. Abraham has all the wrong qualifications for being a founder of God's nation. His relatives worship other gods in a country far from what will become the promised land. Abraham and his wife Sarah are way beyond childbearing years, and Sarah can't get pregnant. No children means no people to populate God's nation. And then God promises the impossible to Abraham.
Is that what they say? I don't mind. I've got a little more grace. My steps are slowing on, and the promise you made fades in the moonlight. I see a star. You see the Milky Way. I see one man counting sand. But you see generations who but you would ever choose to dream your dream in me. Tell me who but you would dare me to believe what I can't see. Who but afraid. I believe in God.
God fulfills his promise to Abraham and Sarah and gives them a son named Isaac, whose name God later changes to Israel. Isaac grows up and has a son named Jacob. One of Jacob's sons, Joseph, is sold into slavery by his brothers, is thrown into prison for over 2 years for a crime he doesn't commit, and with God's help, saves Egypt from starvation and becomes second in command only to Pharaoh. Joseph's family, the Israelites, moved to Egypt. Joseph and his brothers and all their generation die, but the Israelites become so numerous that Egypt is filled with them. Then a new king comes to power and makes the Israelites serve as slaves. After 400 years of slavery, God calls a fugitive with a speech impediment to stand up to Pharaoh, rescue the Israelites from bondage, and lead them through the desert into the promised land. This man's name is Moses.
I'd like to look in the mirror without hiding my eyes. I'd like to see what you see, why you think I'm qualified to speak for you, oh God, Most High, who hides a baby in the reeds of a river until he's grown, gives him a stage and the strength to deliver his people home. 'Cause I'm tongue-tied, weak in the knees, must be something you only see if there's anything good, anything that's good in me. Well, it must be you, must be you. And if there's any part of my shaking heart to see this journey through, it must be you.
Even though God rescues the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, they still insist on disobeying God. As a result of their grumbling and disobedience, God requires the Israelites to wander through the desert for 40 years before entering the Promised Land. Not even their leader Moses is allowed entrance. Instead, it is up to his assistant, Joshua, to lead God's people into their new home. In order to take possession of the land God has promised them, the Israelites must first attack and defeat Jericho, a city safely located within a fortified wall. Instead of attacking Jericho with man-made weapons, God instructs Joshua to march around the city once every 7 days, blowing their horns and shouting to the Lord on the 7th day. Joshua and the Israelites obey God, and he causes the walls of Jericho to fall. The Israelites now have a new home.
Everything was going
The Israelites served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua. After Joshua and his generation all die, another generation grows up who decide to do evil and to worship false gods. God punishes them by allowing neighboring countries to attack and defeat them. For over 300 years, God sends Israel a series of judges to guide them. Whenever Israel has a judge, God is with the country and gives Israel success in battle. But when each judge dies, the Israelites turn away from God and are defeated in battle.
During one of Israel's times of disobedience, God sends a famine to the land. A woman named Naomi, her husband, and their 2 sons moved to the country of Moab in search of food. While in Moab, her 2 sons married Moabite women. After living there for about 10 years, Naomi's husband and sons died. She is now a widow with no sons to help take care of her. Knowing that the famine in Israel has ended, Naomi decides to return to her homeland. She tells her 2 daughters-in-law to stay in Moab, find new husbands, and raise families. But one daughter-in-law, Ruth, refuses. She tells Naomi, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." She insists on leaving her family and friends behind to go home with Naomi and take care of her. When they arrive in Bethlehem, in the country of Israel, Ruth works hard every day gleaning wheat to provide for Naomi. God sees the love Ruth has for her widowed mother-in-law and rewards her self-sacrifice by having the rich owner of the wheat fields become her husband.
Love is a hurricane in the blue sky. Didn't see it coming, never knew why. All the laughter and the dreams, all the memories in between, washed away in a steady stream. Love is a hunger, abandoning your soul. I thought I planted beauty, ready to never grow. Now I'm on my hands and knees, trying to gather up my dreams, trying to hold on to anything. Ricochet, I missed in times like this, when we don't understand, or we just hold hands, you and me and you. Where you go, I'll go too. I'm with you. I'm with you. Till your heart finds a home, I won't let you feel alone. I'm with you. I'm with you. With you. Do your best to build an iron wall, to keep life safe from any wrecking ball. And when the dust is cleared, we will see the house that love rebuilds, guarding beauty that lives here still. To and me and you, where you go, I'll go too. I'm with you. I'm with you. Until your heart finds a home, too. I'm with you. I'm with you. Till your heart finds a home, I won't let you feel alone. I'm with you. I'm with you. You and me and you. Where you go, I'll go too. I'm with you. I'm with you. Till your heart finds a home, I won't let you feel alone. I'm with you. I'm
The Israelites become discontent that they are being governed by God-led judges and not by a king, as most of the countries around them are. Samuel, priest, prophet, and judge, is burdened with the task of appointing a king. Even though he warns the Israelites that God doesn't want them to have a king, they refuse to change their minds. So under God's direction, Samuel appoints a man named Saul to be Israel's first king. Saul is a jealous, impatient, and impulsive man. He is repeatedly disobedient to God, so God rejects Saul as king and chooses someone not in Saul's lineage to succeed him. God chooses Ruth's great-grandson, David. David is a simple shepherd boy, the youngest of 8 sons. He's invited to Saul's palace to soothe the king with songs on his harp. With the Lord's help, he kills the giant named Goliath with a single slingshot and a stone. When King Saul becomes jealous of him, David is forced to hide in caves in order to avoid being killed. After Saul's death, David becomes king of Israel, leading the nation in the ways of the Lord. And according to God, David is a man after God's own heart.
About the oil dripping from my head, I never did dream beyond the pastures I could tend. It never was about the praise, not about the street parade. I didn't really need a crowd when Goliath fell down. I never meant to woo a king with simple shepherd songs, or hide away inside a cave, safe from danger's arms. I never meant to wear a crown or try to bring armies down. It never was about me and who I hope to be. At the end of the day, I wanna hear people say,
For 40 years, David ruled over the kingdom of Israel. Now the time had come for David to appoint his successor. He promises his throne to his son Solomon, instructing him to walk in obedience and keep the commands written in the law of Moses. For the Lord had told David, "If your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel." The Lord grants King Solomon great wisdom and a discerning nature. During Solomon's reign, he builds the great temple of God in Jerusalem. Even though David had honored God by bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, the Lord foretold that Solomon would be the one to build his temple.
Although considered wise, Solomon's judgment would fail him later in life. He allows himself to be led astray by those in Israel who still worship pagan gods. Solomon turns his back on God, and God reciprocates. He promises to tear the kingdom away from Solomon, not during his lifetime, but from his son. But for the sake of David, he does not take everything. God promises that Solomon's son would rule over one tribe of Israel. Solomon dies. His son Rehoboam takes the throne in Jerusalem. But another young man, Jeroboam, rebels against Rehoboam and, fulfilling God's promise, splits the once mighty kingdom. He becomes the king of Israel, while Rehoboam remains in Jerusalem as the king of Judah. The Israelite nation is separated, and so too are God's chosen people separated from him. They do evil in the eyes of the Lord. By the sins they commit, they stir up his jealous anger more than those who were before them.
But God sends prophets to his children to remind them of their covenant and to warn them of the consequences if they continue on in their wicked ways. Many kings come and go in Israel and in Judah. Some achieve godly reforms, others only make a mess of what they inherit. The kingdom of Israel is the first to fall. Heedless of the prophet's warnings, they are not strong enough to defend themselves against the invading Assyrians without God's help. The Israelites are taken into exile. Only the small kingdom of Judah now remains, for its king Hezekiah appeals to the prophet Isaiah to intercede on their behalf. God delivers Jerusalem from the hands of the Assyrians. However, the next message Isaiah delivers is not a warning, it is a promise. God will punish Judah for their behavior and exile them from their home.
Judah falls to Babylon, and the conquering forces burn the temple Solomon had built for the Lord. But while in captivity, the faith of God's people grows, fueled by the message of hope spoken by the prophets Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Israel would one day flourish again. When Babylon falls to Persia, the king allows the exiles to return to Jerusalem and instructs them to begin rebuilding the temple. Thousands of Israelites, encouraged by God's prophets, return home. But many choose not to return to Judah. One man, Mordecai, is living in the city of Susa, one of the 4 capitals of the Persian Empire, with his adopted daughter, Hadassah, also known as Esther. Under God's protection, Esther, a Jew, becomes queen.